Here's an exciting pairing. News Nation's Chris Cuomo sat down with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson for an exclusive interview where they hit on a variety of topics, including Tucker's ousting from Fox News, Cuomo's ousting from CNN. They discussed January 6th. They debated Donald Trump and more. We're going to play a bunch of those clips. First, here's the pair delving into what really happened on January 6th.
January 6th. I know people will say it was an insurrection. Okay, fine. He wasn't charged with that. And there's a reason he wasn't charged with that, and it's not a technicality. And your approach and the approach of other people that, hey, this was just, these guys were in the wrong place, the wrong way, but that's all it was. I don't agree with that. I think it was a riot. And I think they were way over the line, and I think that they were motivated to go way over the line, in part by the President of the United States.
Obviously, were a riot, but let me ask you just a couple questions. One is, why can't we know how many federal agents were in the crowd and what they were doing there?
I'm fine with knowing. I love transparency. It is the key to understand.
It's the opposite of what we have, and there are thousands of hours of tape, and the release of which will not jeopardize security in the Capitol.
You cherry-picked that tape, by the way.
I aired what they.
Cuomo also pressed Carlson on his interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I was like, I don't care. I'm an American citizen. I'm going anyway.
I don't disagree that sitting across from Putin and getting into a shouting match or whatever is going to bear much fruit for people. I understand that. And I get that it's a commodity in the media, but I get that it may not be the highest good.
Well, it's also just vanity. It's vanity.
There is an aspect of it. But you made choices. Like, you didn't ask him about Navalny. You said, well, all leaders kill. But don't you feel that if you are going to go and sit with someone like that, you have to hold them to account for things that matter? Like
I did.
The fact that he may have murdered somebody or a lot of people?
Well, the Ukrainians say that he didn't kill Navalny, so I think it's.
Who killed him then? Guy looks good 1 minute, and the next minute he's dead?
I mean, in some larger sense, the Russian government.
And what Ukrainians say they don't. Zelensky says he killed him.
No, he doesn't. No, the Ukrainian government said, no, he died of natural causes.
Here's Chris Cuomo on why he spoke with Tucker Carlson.
The big question is why. Now, I think the fact that so many people are asking is proof of the problem that confronts us. Why even ask why? Why wouldn't conversation be natural? The answer is simple here. Because their way isn't working. The way we're conducting our politics and our media is not working. It's not helping. In fact, it's hurting us. It's driving us apart. The only thing the two parties seem to have in common these days is a bone-deep belief that the other side is worse. The bad news is that this sickness I outline is severe. The good news is there is a cure, and it's not jousting. Conversation is the cure. When you talk to someone instead of about them, it's very different.
Chris Cuomo appeared on the PBD podcast recently saying that Donald Trump will win in 2024.
This guy's going to win, by the way. This guy's going to win. I've never seen people behind someone like this before. I've never been to rallies like that before. For anyone. Obama didn't even have rallies like that.
So it was a very interesting conversation. I didn't watch all of it. I watched a lot of the clips that were floating on social media. I found it just, frankly, to be compelling television. I thought they were enjoyable to listen to, and they sparred, but it was respectful. We didn't play it, but Cuomo actually did ask it, started by asking, well, I'm not sure exactly when it took place in the interview, was like, why were you so mean to me for so many years? And Tucker, very honestly was like, well, it was fun. It was just, kind of admitting that. But then they got into some issues that we discuss on the show a lot. I think, like them, feature sometimes contrarian perspectives and narratives. So what did you make of it?
Yeah, I will say, I do think that there's something to the talking to rather than talking about people. It forces you to own your tone, your approach, whether or not you're being fair to them in an argument. And
is that how that works, Briahna?
I mean, it does. We have to be more accountable to each other than we would elsewhere. And I even find myself sometimes on my own podcast characterizing something that happened on the show. If you want to know more, go here, and this is what Robby said. And I find myself more often, I think, well, what if Robby listens to this? I want to make sure I characterize him accurately. If I can put the clip in, then I'd rather do that. And I think it makes us more honest and accountable to each other because they're not just an abstract voice in a room or an opinion on the internet. You're a human being who's also shown a lot of grace in kind of trying to understand where I've been coming from over these last couple of years as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Very kind.
Anytime.
I try to do the same, obviously.
Substantively, what did you make of some of these topics? So on the 1-6 point, it is interesting to see someone who used to be a mainstay of liberal mainstream media, especially through that time period, be now in a different kind of media space and talking to someone like Tucker Carlson, who says things and makes points the likes of which never have any kind of airing in those kind of traditional liberal media spheres. Having an actual substantive conversation about, should there be more transparency with respect to 1-6?
Yeah, frankly, I thought they both raised good points. Cuomo, right, someone who used to be on CNN as mainstream media as you can come, CNN and MSNBC networks where the current host, the regular host, cry when forced to recall the memory, like weep on screen when recalling the memory of January 6th, admitting that, okay, the insurrection language does go too far, but it is a riot. It was a bad thing that happened.
Yeah.
And then Tucker he didn't say, well, no, it was just a nice orderly rally where nothing went wrong. Yes, of course there was some bad stuff going on, but, why couldn't we know more about if there were federal agents and what role they played, given, again, not really given direct knowledge of January 6th, but knowledge we have of other incidents like the supposed kidnapping of the governor of Michigan, which was largely demonstrated to have been known to the FBI, and they paid off the informants involved in organizing it. Again, we don't know that. I'm not claiming at all that that's what happened on January 6th. I was there covering it. It looked like a spontaneous riot based on the words of Donald Trump to me, where windows were smashed and cops were fought with. But they agreed that we are absolutely entitled to more transparency about it, including the video footage.
Yeah, especially since why are Democrats digging their heels in on the day of 1-6 when that is in so many ways just window dressing for the broader insurrection claim, or the broader, let's not use the word insurrection,
sure,
the broader claim that Donald Trump had a plot afoot to overturn the election results. And I would really like to see, and maybe they did get to it elsewhere in the interview, I would really like to see some more parallels drawn. If I'm going to give you 1/6 the day, will you entertain, will you engage with, because I've personally never seen Tucker Carlson engage with the substance of the allegations that there was this plot to submit a fake slate of electors, et cetera. Sure. They then were talking about, obviously, the Putin interview. I think Cuomo is right. A lot of people had this question. We had this question going into it. Is he going to be sufficiently prepared to really be able to hold Putin, who obviously is infinitely more knowledgeable about Russia than any outsider, and smart and able to parry? Is he going to have prepared enough to hold him to account? Many folks did not think that Tucker was necessarily able to do that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was a bad idea to do the interview or that he is, a Putin puppet per se.
And and we have to keep the timeline in mind. He couldn't have asked about Navalny's death because he interviewed him before it happened. And I found that wild when what Tucker said that the Ukrainians don't think Putin did it. And for the record, I absolutely believe that Putin had Navalny killed. I do not, frankly, doubt that. Others can doubt that. That's fine. We're totally fine to not buy official narratives. I do buy it in this case. I don't always buy it. I do buy it in this case. So I looked up what Ukraine has said about Navalny's death, and there is not a lot of tears that were shed for Navalny among Ukrainian officials. They view him as not the same as Putin, but another potential Russian nationalist based on the things he said. So there was not this. So Tucker was actually right about that aspect of what Ukrainian officials say.
Yeah, it was also interesting to see the Navalny tribute at the Oscars the other night. It was. There was a Navalny documentary, and there were some Ukrainians that won an award. I think it was the first Ukrainian to ever win an award. And they gave a really moving speech, frankly. I think we talked about it yesterday, about how they wish they never had to make a documentary because they wish there had never been an invasion that has resulted in so many of their countrymen having died. But given some of the critique of Navalny in the wake of his death, the frankly racist statements that he's made about Arabs, comparing people to cockroaches and the like, it was odd in such a kind of diversity-focused setting like the Oscars to not have any reflection on whether or not everyone deserves the same kind of hagiography.
Yeah, and people can be, not people can be, people are morally complicated.
Right.
Even throughout history, we have revered people who had personal failings because their contributions were important or because of the circumstances of what happened to them are important. Navalny is a political prisoner. He's an example of the fact that Russia is an autocracy and does not extend to its people the same rights we should enjoy in the West. But that should not stop us. Maybe it stops some people in the mainstream media, but it doesn't stop us from criticizing forces in the West when they themselves break those commitments and break those promises, as often happens in war and unfortunately happens too much here. So I thought it was a really good conversation, actually, and I think if people missed it, they should tune into more of it.
All right. Stay around. We have more Rising for you coming up next.